Bungie has some explaining to do because the Destiny 2 community is talking about a very interesting topic, and a good amount of people are actually divided on this. So I wanted to bring you a video to see where you stand on it. So let's start from the beginning. Not swap is a modifier that was introduced into Destiny 2 to de-incentivize people from swapping their exotic armor piece. And this first started with Trials of Osiris. It became a problem where people would roam around with mobility exotics or things that helped with movement. And then when they got closer to their super, they would swap to a super focused exotic armor piece. So that way their super would be more powerful. We used to do this back in the Trials days. We used to joke too. It was called the helmet stayed on. And we would use the Titan exotic helmet. What's the name of that Titan exotic helmet? Yes, it was Eternal Warrior. The helmet stays on. We would play an Arc Titan. We would roam around with Dune Marchers or Syntheseps, something like that. And then when you got closer to your super, you would swap to Eternal Warrior, because then when you popped your super, you'd get this like crazy strong overshield. It was really powerful. And it was basically just like the meta for how to play inside Trials of Osiris. And I didn't agree with it. Like, I didn't think that that was like a fun way to play, going into your menu and then swapping your exotics. It felt a little cheesy, but once I started playing Trials regularly and doing these carries, I noticed that people were doing it to me. And so if they're going to do it to me, then you kind of have to do it back. It's the only way you could like compete against it. You know, if you both get your super and one guy gets a crazy overshield and you don't, then you're just going to lose. Your team's going to wipe. And then you have to wipe your Trials card. And it's a big problem. And obviously, all those issues are gone now because a variety of things. They've changed Trials altogether. So we're talking about like issues on top of issues that have pretty much been resolved at this point. But they introduced this mode called not swap. And so if you swap your exotic, it reads right here, if you swap your exotic or legendary armor or your ammo type, it will drain all of your super and ability energy and remove your special and your heavy ammo. So the goal is don't swap your armor or your exotic weapon, right? And if you swap the type of weapon, for example, if you have like a primary weapon in the kinetic slot and you swap it to an energy weapon, you're going to lose all your ammo across the board. So very punishing mechanic, and basically just de-incentivized swapping in Trials of Osiris. Then Bungie pushed the envelope, bringing this into PvE. And that was an interesting point of contention that a lot of the Destiny 2 community had, you know, a difference of opinion with. I think that the sweaty, the hardcore Destiny PvE guys, they really don't like it because they want to be able to use loadout swapping, and they have like all these really strong loadouts. And when you do a bunch of loadout swapping, you basically become like 2, 3, 4 times more powerful than you would ordinarily when it comes to your, you know, ad clear, killing the champs, killing majors, high value targets, or even boss damage, right? So you can basically, just to give you a simplified version of it, you could roam around in activity and just clear the ads. And then when it came time to damage the boss, you could open up your menu, swap your loadout, and then have a whole boss DPS loadout. And then that evolved into people having multiple DPS loadouts because bosses have like immunity phases or transitionary phases when they go into final stand. You can see this when you see people solo the witness. They have like a bunch of loadouts, right? And it's super impressive that people can solo the witness, but it's only possible because of these loadout swaps. If loadout swapping did not exist, people would not be able to solo the witness on any character unless there was some like crazy crafting level game breaking bug, right? So loadout swapping makes you significantly more powerful. The sweatiest of the sweaty PvE people really enjoy that, and they like the ability to loadout swap and customize the game to that. And they argue that it allows them to use more of the exotic armor and exotic weapons and god rolls that they've farmed over the many years that they've played the game. So they have their reasons behind it. Now, Bungie, they don't like the loadout swapping in PvE as well when they watch the raid races, because you're watching a raid race and suddenly someone goes in their menu, out of their menu, they shoot their gun a couple times, in their menu, out of their menu, shoot their gun a couple times, in and out. You know what I'm saying? You're watching the gameplay and it's very disjointed and very, you know, you're going in and out of the menu. And it's not exactly how the game was intended to be played, at least from Bungie's perspective. You're supposed to load into the activity, rally the flag, and then run around, shoot the ads, and then shoot the boss. Boss dies, collect your loot, bada bing, bada boom, encounter over, right? Like that's how it was intended from Bungie. But people obviously want to min-max and optimize to the highest degree so that way they can clear and be as efficient as possible. In fact, Desert Perpetual, the last raid race, it was completely impossible for anyone to be able to clear the raid race without loadout swapping. So now fast forward to today. Not swap is either bugged or it's been buffed by Bungie, and people are upset about it. Obviously, the sweaty people are especially upset about it, and people who are not sweaty or don't care about not swap being added to the raid don't mind. So not swap, like we said, started in trials. It was brought to PvE with Rite of the Nine. It's a dungeon activity. And now it is for the first time ever being brought into a raid activity with the epic Desert Perpetual raid race. So Spite here goes on Twitter and says not swap is bugged or at least poorly communicated. Despite stating you lose abilities and ammo on armor swap, you actually lose them on stat changes. This includes tuning. Nowhere does it say this in game or in the TWID where new not swap was detailed. At Destiny 2 team at DMG. So you can see here he goes into his menu. He swaps to his class item from a regular grenade mod to a minor grenade mod, and he loses all of his super, all of his ability energy. He loses everything, right? Like all the ammo in his entire character is lost. Now, this is very different from what we've seen previously. And so basically when they first implemented not swap with this text, people still were swapping their loadouts. And I remember the first day they implemented this, people were like, oh, this is a joke. We still are swapping our loadouts. We're just doing it in a certain way where you don't change your exotic or you can do it at a certain time. And I remember telling them on the very first day, I was like, okay, you guys can continue to swap your loadouts, but like you have to know that Bungie is going to come after this at some point in time, whether you like it or not. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm just saying, that Bungie is going to come after this because the point of not swap is to, in the name, not swap, right? If you create a workaround or find a way to still swap, then obviously, they're gonna eventually update it and change it. And you can be as mad about it as you want, and you can think that is the dumbest thing for them to do. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but now they've finally done that. And so now they've finally made not swap like truly not swap. Like you cannot swap anything. If you swap anything on your character at all, you lose everything. So you will not swap. It will be so punishing to swap anything in game right now that you just wouldn't do it. You just would not do it. It's not worth it. So that's the conversation that's happened now. Bungie has finally buffed not swap now. They finally fixed it so that there is no workaround. There is no, loopholes in it. And if you want to complete the epic version of Desert Perpetual, you got to load in with the loadout that you want to take from start to finish and run that the whole way through. No swapping your mods, no swapping your exotic armor, no swapping around your stats, no swapping anything. You're not swapping anything at all. If you do, you're going to be punished in such a way that it's probably not going to be worth it. There might be a couple little workarounds that people figure out or use. Like maybe you could swap like after you've used your super. This is a thing that people have been doing where like you pop your well, and after you've popped your well, you can then, maybe if you used all your power ammo or something, I don't know. Then maybe you swap something if necessary. But even at that point, that's going to be such a minimal power increase that you're probably just not going to see anyone swapping anymore. And so this is now the new update, right? You lose everything, as it says right here. And this is what a lot of people are talking about. This right now has gotten to, 337,000 views. This has become a very hot topic. And a lot of people, especially the sweatiest of the sweaties, they really don't like not swap. It's very restrictive. And in fact, a lot of people are protesting the raid race, saying that they're not going to compete in the raid races as long as Bungie does this type of stuff. They are not a fan of it. They don't like this at all. And they feel like it's makes the raid very uncompetitive in a lot of ways. And that's their opinion. And I definitely think that they're valid for feeling that way. Like a lot of them are in agreement in regards to that. It is unfortunate that it's gotten to this place because it feels like when Bungie first implemented loadouts in Destiny 2, they probably didn't have it in their minds that people would be just like loadout swapping like crazy and basically becoming like 4 times more powerful than ordinary. So their laziness in their ability to update loadouts and the consistent swapping has, become a big point of contention between them and the community. And it's gotten to be a pretty detrimental point right now. A lot of people are really mad at Bungie, because this loadout swapping has just become the norm, like basically if you want to do like something really challenging, you kind of have to loadout swap. In fact, I've done several encounters now in raids with my teammates, and my teammates, just as a disclaimer, these guys are really, really good, very competitive. We're trying to clear contest raids, trying to get, high ranking finishes in everything, trying to be as optimized as possible. If I don't loadout swap, they're looking at me like I'm an absolute potato with arms and legs. And you know, rightly so, because basically, like, imagine you could be like 4 times more powerful, but you're like, no, I don't want to go in my menu, right? Well, you know, you're just going to be 4 times less powerful then because you don't want to go in your menu. And so it's kind of a weird thing where like I personally I'm like, man, going into my loadout and swapping like 4 times every raid encounter. I'm like, it's not my favorite thing to do, but it became the normal, right? So I've gotten used to it now. I do loadout swap regularly when I'm doing raid encounters and raid activities. You know, when we were doing the contest raid, I had to loadout swap. I was doing I had like 3 or 4 loadouts for every encounter, and I would just go from start to finish, swap, 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 swap back and forth. So that way I could clear the ads more optimal and do more optimal boss damage, etc. And so it's just become like the new norm. And now we're kind of being forcibly pushed out of that. And a lot of people are really curious, really frustrated by it. They don't like not swap at all, but the new buff not swap has them even more angry. So I want to know what you think about it. How do you feel about not swap being added to these raids? Is this going to deter you from actually competing in these raid races? Do you think that it's a good thing for the health of these raid races overall? Or do you think that it's a frustrating component? Or do you think that loadout swapping is fine, you know? I have such a mixed opinion about it because I feel like the inner old man in me, like being a gamer that's gamed for so long, I'm like, I don't want to be going in my loadout so much. But then ironically, because I play so much Destiny 2 and I'm trying to do these challenging stuff, I'm like, well, I obviously have to go in my loadout. So I kind of wish that when Bungie implemented loadouts in the first place, that they kind of had the foresight to see this happening and maybe like implemented this upon launch, because then we would never have to cross this bridge and have this problem. Because now it's like basically it's like we're getting weakened by a lot, by a wide margin, right? We're getting weakened by such a wide margin that it's got everyone angry because you're not going to be able to do a lot of the stuff that you could previously do because of loadout swapping. So it's a really weird crossroads for the Destiny 2 community too, because the hardcores are very passionate about this, and this is like the final straw for them. And the casual players are just like, what the fuck do I care? You know, half of the people out there watching this video right now, I would be willing to bet more than half the people are like, dude, I don't even loadout swap at all. That's not a problem for me. I barely raid. I just play whatever builds I like. This is a non-issue for most of you, right? So it's an interesting crossroads. Who is Bungie catering to by creating this not swap modifier and making it so strong and adding it to the raids? And will this have a positive benefit to raid races going forward? Those are the real questions that are trying to be answered right now. And we'll see what happens. This obviously goes in tandem with Bungie wanting you want to see people's gameplay during these raid races, right? You don't want to see people constantly going into their loadouts. And on top of that, we're also working towards getting people off of blacking out their screens. So we actually have the new overlay that's here now. So literally, if you want to compete in these raid races, you have to sign up, live stream your gameplay. And if you want to hide some of your buffs for whatever reason you're trying to be strategic, I guess, then you can put on this raid stream overlay. And in the process, I'll actually download this here. This is what it would look like with the B-roll. Like if you're actually doing Desert Perpetual, this is what it's going to look like now when you're watching streamers do it. Obviously, the face cam will be above this. Let me raise the face cam up here. So this is what it looks like now. In fact, my face cam technically goes out of the bounds of what's allowed right now. So I might actually get disqualified for World's First. I'm not sure how strict they're actually going to be about that, which is kind of funny to think about. But this is the new overlay. This is what streamers are going to be using. And they're going to be required to use this overlay. They're going to be required to stream their gameplay. And basically, that might seem so ridiculous, but it's basically Bungie's response to the epidemic of cheaters in these raid races. The last raid race had 70% of the teams that cleared cheating. You know, Bungie let it go unnoticed and under the radar for so long that it festered, you know. I've said this for a long time, how there's a cheating black market in Destiny 2. I have said this so many times now that if you have not heard me say this, I'm surprised. Like I would be shocked. I've talked about this at least a dozen, if not 24 times on the channel. There is a crazy, insane black market for cheating in Destiny 2, where people are cheating, carrying people through activities while cheating, and charging them money. And this has been going on for years and years and years. It happens in trials. It happens in every playlist. And finally, it got everyone's attention enough with Desert Perpetual that people finally woke the fuck up. You know, I posted the first ever video talking about this topic, period. And I posted the first ever Desert Perpetual video exposing this happily. The cheaters don't like me. The cheaters, they're the ones saying crazy shit about me all on Reddit and Twitter. They're not happy that I'm exposing them for the fucking insane situation that they've created in this game. 70% of the teams cheated in Desert Perpetual. And so Bungie has finally implemented some rules and some regulations so that way the epic version of the raid has less cheaters. Will there be 0% cheaters in the epic version? No. There will not be 0% cheaters. Will there be less than 70%? I sure as hell hope so. I sure as hell hope so. I'm hoping, I think a good measure of success would be 10 to 20% cheaters in the epic version. I think that would show that they went from a 70% to a 10 to 20% of the teams cheating. That's good progress. You're not going to get rid of all the cheaters. They're way too persistent. They're making a lot of money. They were charging $400 per person to clear this encounter, and with their cheats, they could clear it in 30 seconds. There was one guy alone who cleared it like something like 30 times. He probably made like thousands of dollars in less than one day by being a cheater that plays Destiny 2. Like, think about that. Thousands of bucks? That's crazy. There's one guy that cleared it 22 times while cheating. That still isn't banned today. Somehow this guy has squeaked through the cracks. Apparently Bungie's anti-cheat systems and measures decided that he was legit. He cleared contest Desert Perpetual 22 times legitimately. It's at such a point where it's so laughable that like saying it out loud sounds ridiculous. Like, there's a guy that cleared the hardest raid contest ever 22 times. Like, to put it in context, I think like Salta Greppo is like the best player in the world. He cleared it like, I think twice, you know? Put this in perspective here, right? It's crazy time. It's crazy times. So how do you feel about Not Swap getting buffed? Where do you stand on this side of this controversy, right? Where do you stand on this? Are you okay with Not Swap being added to the raids? Does this change anything for you? Are you against it? This is going to be a hot topic. A lot of people are going to be talking about this. If this raid race goes over successful, this is definitely going to be the future of raid races, that's for sure. And like I said, it comes down to the spectator's experience, because believe it or not, in the calendar year of Destiny 2, there's only one day where Destiny is exceptional. 365 days a year, only one day does Destiny become exceptional. Maybe two. That day is the raid race and the launch of a new annual expansion. The raid race especially, though. The viewership for raid race is like 50x normal Destiny viewership. And so what Bungie wants to do is, if the whole world is going to watch Destiny for one day, the raid race, right? They want to make that viewer experience good. Because if everyone tunes in to the raid race and everyone's screen is completely blacked out, like if all you see is this and some dweeb in the corner with his mic muted, this is not interesting to watch, right? No one wants to watch. This is not watching the raid race anymore. This is watching some nerd pick his nose while doing the raid. So they don't want the black screens anymore. They want you streaming your gameplay, and they want rule sets that don't allow you to constantly swap your loadouts, so that way we can just watch the gameplay. I understand it from Bungie's point of view, and I understand it from the player's point of view. So unfortunately, I have to ride the fence on this one here. I have to be a fence rider, and I have to say, I don't know. I don't know what's the right decision. If you were just purely a spectator, right? If you just purely liked watching these raid races, you probably are a fan of Not Swap, and you're probably a fan of not blacking out your screen. Like, if you just watch them, right? That's going to be a better viewing experience. If you're a fan of actually doing the raid races and trying to get worlds first, you're going to be a fan of not having Not Swap and being able to black out your screen so you don't have to give away essential information as to how to clear the encounters. So it is literally a double-edged sword, and the community is very split on this. Let me know what you think, though. That's a wrap.